All right, sports fans, welcome to SMQB's episode 109, which is available on Spotify, Apple Pod, and YouTube.
Hello.
Hello, guys. I'm joined. This is Rooster, joined by House and Pope. We're missing two. Seems to be their standard
Right. Was it like
fare lately.
It's like in spring, it's just kind of optional whether you show Rooster.
Yeah, guys have trials and decide that that's more important than
Trials,
showing up for the pod.
Kids, travel,
Children. My God. All right.
paella and wine.
Milk is missing the pod to root on the Phillies.
The Little League Phillies.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's make sure we get
that.
Do they have any wins?
I know the major league ones do. Major league ones don't, but I don't know about.
I think the Little League guys have more wins than the actual Phillies.
If they have
House, you're lucky because I couldn't find an image of a broom that was going to put there up for my virtual background for you.
Oh boy.
Hey, before we get started, let me just harken back to episode 108, where we made some predictions for the outcome of the men's Final Four. The Milkman had FSU going all the way.
Or
FAU. Popester had Miami, and yours truly, Rooster, said that UConn would steamroll Miami, and then whoever won the FAU San Diego State game. So that's our show for the week. We'll check with you next week.
Actually, it was a great show. I was sorry I missed it, but if I heard it right, Hope said the U is going to hang the banner. You can mark my words and play it back.
And in any event, they would not be steamrolled by UConn, is what he said.
I think not getting steamrolled was my. How do you define steamrolled? We'll let the listeners decide.
Hey, speaking of UConn, I have a trivia question for you fellas. You know Donovan Klingon, the 7'2" guy on UConn?
Yeah, Klingon.
He was born in February of 2004, the year of UConn's second championship with Ben Gordon and Okafor. Do you know where he was born?
That's
Klingon?
Yeah.
On a Star Trek ship?
Yeah, it must have been in the outer reaches of the galaxy or something.
Bristol, Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Home of the ESPN.
Yeah, baby. Hey, before we get to the men's finals, House, the women's finals was amazing. I think it changed the public's perception of women's college basketball. Almost 10 million people tuned into that LSU Iowa game. Talk about that game.
I think that there's a lot of commentary right now that overall, if people were watching both, the women's tournament was more entertaining than the men's tournament. And I think a pretty good argument can be made for that. I think America as a whole got introduced to women's college basketball, and a player that, the LSU champion coach Kim Mulkey said is a generational player in Caitlin Clark. And I confess I had seen highlights from time to time of Caitlin Clark, but I hadn't really watched a game. And I turned it on and I said, this reminds me of Larry Bird. I mean, anywhere in the gym, her competitiveness, fierce competitor, the way she dishes the ball. But what we saw in that Final Four I was upset of, a University of South Carolina team who hadn't lost in 41 games, was the defending national champion, was the prohibitive favorite to repeat as national champion.
Made UConn women sort of irrelevant the last couple of years.
Incredible. Yep. I mean, that UConn women you could not knock them off the pedestal. And finally, the one really who did and has become like the new standard bearer has been South Carolina and Dawn Staley. But
Dawn Staley was interviewed for some men's college jobs after they won the championship last year, and I think she signed for like a $2-something million.
Yeah, she's incredible. she's incredible. But what the women's final produced, as you said, was almost 10 million viewers at its peak, 12.6 million viewers. And just to put that into perspective, of course, it was the biggest women's college basketball viewership ever. But that 10 million viewership is bigger than any MLS game ever, any Stanley Cup final game since 1973, bigger than the 2023 Orange Bowl or Sugar Bowl, bigger than any Thursday night football game this past year, bigger than any NBA finals game between the Suns Bucks 2021, bigger than any World Series game between Dodgers Rays in 2020. The world was watching, and the women really put on a show. LSU Iowa put together the most combined points in a final game ever. LSU scored the most points of all time, and people were introduced to Angel Reese, who some are calling, Bayou Barbie. And Angel Reese is only a sophomore, and her talent down low to control the boards,
Her relentlessness too is amazing.
Relentlessness. Yeah. And of course, what has grabbed the headlines is this whole back and forth and undertones really of how public is treating it, and some in the critics are treating this in a racial way, in that at the end of the game, with time running out, Angel Reese basically tried to get in Caitlin Clark's face to say, you can't see me now. She was mocking Caitlin Clark having done that in a game.
Caitlin Clark having done it.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark having done it to Louisville in their game. And right. And after that, Angel Reese was kind of pointing to her ring finger because she's getting the ring.
Also the ring finger.
Saying that she got the ring. And
Caitlin Clark also talked some smack to the woman on the South Carolina team who they didn't guard. They left somebody open that whole game.
Yeah.
Because they were packing the middle, and they left this woman wide open and she couldn't throw it in the ocean. Caitlin Clark mocked her after the game. So, it's fair. All's fair. And this is something men do all the time.
Yeah, she mocked her during the game. She basically waved her hand at it and said, "Go ahead, shoot it if you want. You'll never make it." And she ended up passing up the ball. And so she has this kind of like moxie, this real competitive fire. And Angel Reese did something very similar at the end of the game. And people started saying that Angel Reese was classless. You were ahead by a whole bunch of points. And, she's trying to walk off the court and you're getting in her face. And a lot of people responded saying, "Are you kidding me here with the double standard?"
Right.
And Caitlin Clark has come out and said, "It doesn't bother me at all. We're two hard-nosed competitors. She's a great player. She should be able to say whatever she wants. I would do the same. She's a great competitor." My take on all this is phenomenal for the sport.
Yep.
Like the fact that Twitter is dominated by whether or not this was classless or not, and that everything in the sports world is about whether or not Angel Reese should have done what she did relative to Caitlin Clark. This is so good for women's college basketball. And I think that game and this Final Four catapulted them into what will be reliable viewership. Last point here, which is pretty interesting. The ESPN owns the women's college tournament rights for a total of $34 million contract through 2023, 2024. I think the price of poker is going up.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up this "you can't see me" dispute, because the people who are classless are not Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark is a baller, and like you said, she came out and did the classy thing and said, "Hey, stop trolling Angel Reese." I would have done the same thing. The people who are classless are the ones who are out there on the on social media trolling Angel Reese, trolling Dawn Staley. They hate these teams that are majority African American, apparently. And if the Iowa team does the same exact thing that South Carolina does or LSU does, they have a big problem with it. It's totally hypocritical, and I'm glad you brought it up.
I'm not defending Caitlin in any way as far as her actions, not meriting any kind of criticism as well. But in the context, Caitlin did that in front of her own team, basically like, showing them that they can't see me. Angel took it to a different level. Now, I'm not going to say Angel should be the one criticized for that. She just took it to a different level. But to say, that the equivalency is that Caitlin did the exact same thing Angel did, she didn't. But I don't care, and I think that that's the point that House is trying to make, is this is just good all the way around for the future of women's college basketball. The fact that we are talking about it and that we are leading our pod with this versus, in an insane, crazy NCAA men's basketball tournament, that's nothing but good.
Yeah, you're
what
right.
I don't
You're
want
right.
to see, what I don't want to see is it become an issue upon racial or class lines. And hopefully the talking heads, the Twitterati, are calming down a little bit and appreciating. And the fact that Caitlin said it didn't bother her, the fact that Kim Mulkey, who we can talk about later, some of her antics, but Kim Mulkey was extremely nice and complimentary and called Caitlin Clark a generational player, and that was very well appreciated. I think that, I'm not saying these teams love each other, but at the same time, I think that the media tried to hype and trump up something that really didn't exist.
People our age just need to accept the fact that things have changed. Back when I was playing sports, if someone came up to me and did that "you can't see me" face gesture, I probably would have punched their hand so they were slapped themselves right in their own face. It just wasn't acceptable back then to do that
You
crap.
still would do that.
No, you didn't do that crap. You just didn't do it. But now everybody does it. And so if it's okay for the men to do it, it's okay for the women to do it. If it's okay for Caitlin Clark to do it, it's okay for Angel Reese to do it, period.
I will say that, notwithstanding the incredible play of Iowa and Caitlin Clark, she set a scoring record for both men's and women. She beat Glenn Rice's record with 191 points for a tournament, 8 threes in a championship game, 60 assists across all records. The first men or women's player with a 40-point triple-double. But notwithstanding all that, you probably also heard that the First Lady, Jill Biden, suggested that maybe both teams should come to the White House for a celebration. That's bad. That's really bad. To the winner goes the spoils. And LSU felt continued disrespect even after having won it. I agree with them. If Iowa wants to go to the White House and you want to celebrate Caitlin Clark, they need to win a championship, period.
Right. That's just, I'm not even going to say it. Never mind.
It just wasn't thinking.
Congrats to the women's tournament. It's funny, on this pod in the last couple of years, we were busy punching the NCAA during the pandemic. Remember, they weren't giving them the same conditions and all that stuff. The women's tournament was like on a great stage this year. Congrats to the entire women's tournament.
Pope, you're a student of men's March Madness. This year we have no number 1, 2, or 3 seeds in the finals. We had a number 4 against the number 5 seed. Nonetheless, how do you rank this overall March 2023 March Madness?
Well, I mean, we always say it, but it's always true. The tournament never fails to surprise and amaze us, and it's still the best 3 weeks that we have in the year as far as just entertainment and watching these kids compete at such a high level, and the heartbreak and the joy of victory. There's just nothing like it. And this tournament didn't disappoint, right? We had the second highest seeded Final Four, second only to 2011, where this year was 5.75 for the teams in the Final Four. Last 2011 was 6.5. Somebody could probably tell me who won in 2011 too, right?
UConn.
So UConn's been the benefit of the 2 highest seeded Final Fours. Doesn't take anything away from them, but you play who you play. You can't pick who you get to play. They were, in my opinion, they were misseeded. They probably should have been at lowest. Highest, they should have been a 3. But they lost that last game to Marquette. That probably cost them a seed. I think you had probably the greatest upset in NCAA history. Apologies to the Retrievers of UMBC, but Fairleigh Dickinson, the smallest team in the tournament, knocked off Goliath with their 7-2 center.
Player of the year.
Player of the year. Purdue. Don't ever buy stock in Purdue, Bison, anybody else. Florida lost now 16, 15, and 13 the last 3 years. But the excitement of that, then having the 15 seed, Princeton advance, and then play well into the round of 32. It was to me, it was a great tournament, and my team was not in there. My adopted team didn't stay very long, but yet I was not going to miss any of it. There wasn't any thought to not watching the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final Four, because I love college basketball. And if you love college basketball, you love this tournament, period.
Yep. And I know it's hard to predict given the transfer portal and guys declaring early for the NBA, but it looks like UConn is coming out as Vegas's favorite already for next year. What do you think, Pope? Who are going to be the strong teams next year?
Well, yeah, you're right. We don't know what the transfer portal is going to yield. I mean, Duke is going to be loaded. They got the consensus number one recruiting class coming in, along with a couple of their guys who are staying. The Blue Bloods are going to reload. I think Houston will be up there. Florida Atlantic, they're bringing back some of the same guys. I don't know if there'll be a top 10 team, but you never know until the tournament kind of run they'll make. To me, the big question though is this an anomaly, having San Diego State and Florida Atlantic in the Final Four, the mid majors, who did it largely based on two things: transfer portal and the fact that some guys were able to come back for their COVID year. Well, that's going away. Obviously, you're not going to have COVID years in perpetuity, and the transfer portal, it'll help those teams. But will we see a reemergence of the NIL in this? Are you going to see the powerhouses consolidate again because they have the advantage of using NIL? I don't know. I think that's where to me more interesting than who's going to be on the top the next couple of years is it going to be mid majors who are going to make a yearly return to the Final Four, whether it's one or two, or will the ACC, Big 12, Big East, maybe the Pac-12 when they consolidate, are those conferences going to dominate? I mean, if you look at the last 7 or 8 winners, I mean, you got Big East, ACC, Big 12 have dominated.
But this year we had some Elite 8, Final Four teams who were not in those conferences, who seemed to me to be comprised of more upperclassmen than you typically see these days.
Well, yes, that one of the reasons is because they have their COVID year, and another reason is because of NIL. You'll have some guys who will stay around and not try to get drafted in if they're not guaranteed first round picks. I mean, there's only 30 of those. I mean, so then you got second round, you're not guaranteed, and you got European League. Well, hell, some of these NIL deals are better or about the same as the European League. So the guys stay around for college. I think that's good for the college game. I think you're going to have more experienced veteran teams, and if you
cohesive
put it together,
teams.
Yeah, and if you could put it together with some transfer portal magic, you can make a run. You can make a run a lot easier in the NCAA basketball tournament than you can in the future college football playoff tournament.
What's Gonzaga going to look like next year? Seem like they're getting ready to have a little drop off.
Well, Timmy says he's not coming back. He's been there only 8 years, so he'll be gone.
He's going to transfer to San Diego State, where he'll be the youngest guy on the team.
That's right. That would be funny. Mark Few he's an elite coach. He's going to be able to put together a good squad. Maybe they're not going to be as elite as they were this year, but they'll be back.
I think overall, like we talked about it during the year about parity overall during the NCAA season. And I think you're going to continue to see more and more of that. It already started, the product already started to degrade for years now when players can leave earlier and teams don't stay together. But now more than ever, with kids choosing G League out of high school instead of NCAA, with the transfer portal, like you said, like with the NIL money, I just see a dilution of nobody ran away with it the whole year. I mean, yeah, Houston had a good record, but nobody ran away with it. There was no prohibitive favorite. And it's not like we saw a team in this tournament where we say, look out for them next year. Is there any prohibitive favorite next year?
I mean, as currently constituted, right? Because they're going to be different next year.
Right.
Right. There's going to be guys going to the NBA from UConn. Although I have to tell you, I'm really looking forward to seeing Klingon play full time instead of just coming in off the bench to spell Sonogo. I think that guy's going to be a lottery pick someday if he stays for a year or two.
Who, Klingon or Sonogo?
Yeah, no, Klingon. Klingon.
Isn't Sonogo going pro?
I think he is. Yeah,
he's got to be a lottery pick. I mean,
they're talking late
upside.
They're talking late first round, early second round for Sonogo because of kind of size. It's like so weird. He's maybe plays power forward. He's a little bit missized for the NBA.
He has no jump. I mean, he's got no hops whatsoever. Yeah. Did you see him dunk the ball once the whole tournament? I don't think so. He's got to be like 6'9", 6'10", and he just doesn't. I think he needs to get into better shape because he's not able to get any lift. And if he's just going to be a hard working, rebounding, putback kind of guy who's got a decent shot from outside, he needs to be in better shape. So he could be a disappointment in the NBA. I'll tell you who I don't think will be is Jordan Hawkins.
He will not be a disappointment.
That guy is going to get better every year, and he's going to be like if Grant Hill had stayed healthy.
Well, that's a pretty big comparison. But he has a similar game to that. I do think he's going to be a good NBA player.
Well, I mean, I think other than, of course, Lamont Butler, and we didn't talk about this, but you realize that shot by Lamont Butler was the first true buzzer beater that we've ever had in the Final Four. And by that, I mean
with the team losing to take
that. I mean, yeah, it was outcome determinative, and if they hadn't made it, the other team would have won. If he made it, then they win. Because like Chris Jenkins and who else? Jalen Suggs and Derek Wittenberg, Lorenzo Charles. Those were all tied games.
And that was the Leitner shot in the finals.
Keith Smart. No, that was in the Elite Eight. Keith Smart was with time left. That's why it wasn't a quote unquote buzzer beater. Yeah, there was still some time left. But what were we talking about?
We're just talking about
we're talking about UConn's excellence. That's what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, of course.
Rooster, how crazy was it in Milford last night?
Oh man. I mean, people on Facebook for Milford were going crazy. I had one friend send me a message that said, UConn either wins it all or sucks ass. There's no in between. And that's kind of true. We've won 5 titles since '99, but we've missed the tournament 8 times during that period. And in 7 of the ones that we made it, we were out one and done in the first round. So it's pretty
last 2 years.
UConn is really win or bust, not much in between. But this year, I don't know. I tell you, I enjoyed this team maybe the most of all 5 championships. Maybe a close second or first would have been the 2013-2014 team led by Shabazz Napier, the year that Kevin Ollie won it as coach. For the same reason, they were a 7 seed that year, and they didn't have all these stars on the team. Every other team had a superstar like Ray Allen, Rip Hamilton, Emeka Okafor, Kemba Walker. This year's team had some stars. Sonogo, I don't think he's going to be a superstar. and Jordan Hawkins is young, and Donovan Clingan is very young. But they were so balanced, and I actually think the story was their defense.
Yeah.
Everyone we kept hearing about
Suffocating.
San Diego State's defense. Yeah, UConn suffocated San Diego State, and in fact, they held the last 3 teams they played to
And
33.
Gonzaga.
Yeah, 30 Gonzaga. Who they play after that?
Arkansas
Miami.
before.
Miami before that, Arkansas, Gonzaga, Miami, and then San Diego State. They held them to about 33% shooting from the floor, which is bad. So their defense was amazing, but their balanced offense too is a whole new look for UConn with under Dan Hurley. I mean, you see them moving and weaving at the top of the key to start every possession. Teams are exhausted trying to keep up with that, and these guys have just bought into Dan Hurley's style of play, and he just has a great cast of role players to complement Sanogo, Hawkins, and then one day Lurch.
Well, what I was going to say is that Hawkins, we were talking about, kind of shots of the tournament.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if Connecticut wouldn't have won, but I think it would have been maybe down to the finish if Hawkins doesn't bury that 3 when they're down, when San Diego State had charged to make it down by 5. Hawkins gets that right off the screen and just turns around and buries that 3 to make it 8, and then they go on a run after that.
Yep.
But if Hawkins misses that shot and San Diego State comes down and makes it a 1-possession game,
Yeah,
I mean, all bets are off because teams, it's like Barkley said, we haven't seen Connecticut sweat, and we don't know how they're going to react. But San Diego State knows what they're doing. They've won the last 2 games by 1 point.
Yep.
So that was, I mean, I think we all
Those are one
said
of the
it. We
biggest
probably
shots.
texted it. It's like dagger. I mean, that was it. 8 points. You can't come back from that.
I have to tell you, I was nervous when San Diego State whittled it down to 5. But you know who wasn't nervous is Dan Hurley. I mean, for a young coach, that guy has amazing composure and confidence. I mean, and it seems to have permeated the whole team. They just never panicked.
What did he tell
I
him in the
love-
huddle? He said, "No more turnovers, and we win the national championship."
Yeah, I think he's already a better coach than the one and only Jim Calhoun.
Whoa.
Wow.
Who
I
has-
love what Jay Wright said after the game, which was that Connecticut was improving with each consecutive game. You could see the team gel and get better and better and better.
Yep,
And he
yep.
said, and you want to know something? The way Dan Hurley coaches this team, if they played tomorrow, they would play even better. They just kept climbing together as a team,
Right,
getting
right.
better with each successive game.
Well, they started the season unranked, and one of the guys who was a big contributor last night, Tristan Newton, scored 19 points and I think had
He
10
was
rebounds.
huge.
He was a transfer, and they didn't start to gel with him until sometime around the Big East tournament, which, as you know, they lost to Marquette. So, yeah, they did keep getting better because they were continuing to play together with a guy they hadn't played with last year or even all year.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I have to bring up my team in talking about the tournament overview. The contrast between what Carolina and UConn did. Carolina started the year preseason number 1. UConn started the year unranked. Both teams had very stressful Decembers where they lost 4 or 5 or 6 games. UConn responded and went on a run and won the national championship. Carolina folded and missed the tournament. So
Yep.
really, really good job by Dan Hurley. But what it shows you is that we may be missing the boat completely on teams next year that can put it together and peak and make a run because of the way the new NCAA is constituted.
Well, it also shows you that the Big East is back. I know Bison and I are beating that one to death, but they are back and they're tough as nails and they have a lot of good teams. And so if you come out of the Big East and go into March Madness, you're like war ready at that point. And it really helped UConn.
I mean, other than maybe sometimes DePaul, who's been at the bottom of the heap, when you lose in the Big East, it's not like the biggest shock because any of those teams from Providence to Seton Hall to Syracuse to St. John's, Marquette, Xavier, Creighton, they're all capable of a win and capable of a run. And the Big East steals you for this tournament.
Believe it or not, Syracuse is gone from the Big East.
Oh, that's
And
true.
It's a damn shame, but it's
It is
true.
a damn shame. Is it a damn shame? I'm stuck in that
Yeah.
forever Big East world with Syracuse.
Yeah. Hey, one last thing about Adama Sanogo. I know I mentioned it in a previous pod, that he's been going through Ramadan. Well, I forgot that Ramadan lasts for 2 weeks and is still going on. So for the last 2 weeks, he's had no food or water from sunup to sundown every day. He's just an amazing guy, and he's a really nice guy too. Did you hear his interview after the game?
Yeah.
He's just full of grace and gratefulness to his coach and his teammates, and just a really good guy. I mean, whoever does draft him is going to get a great locker room guy. I just hope he finds a way to make it work at the next level, because he doesn't have the athletic skills as some of the other people he'll be playing against.
Well, before we move on from the NCAA tournament, we need to, I guess, pour one out, if you want to call it that, for Jim Nance. Called his final game after 32 years of sappiness and coming up with just the worst cliche.
Goodbye, friends.
Hello, friends. So
I love the guy. I love the guy.
Well, how can you not? I mean, he's got a,
Yeah.
But he's moving on to continue to do, of course, Augusta and CBS golf and in football. But since 1991, that's been the voice of the NCAA tournament for all of us. And so it will be a little different next year with Ian Engel, and good luck to him. I don't know if they're going to bring back Rafferty and Grant Hill. I could do without Rafferty. I like Grant Hill, so.
I like Rafferty. I thought he was a good compliment to Nance.
Yeah,
Or Nance. I'm sorry, Nance's syrupiness.
With the kiss.
Well,
organize the puppies.
Go to the pasture, Bill.
All right. Anything else on the journey?
Congrats, Rooster.
Yeah, man.
It's a big one.
It's been a while, man. It feels good. It's been too long.
Wait, are we? So did we cover Blue Bloods then?
Well, UConn's a blue blood. End of discussion. What else do you need to talk about?
Well, yeah, but it's do they? If you look at the Blue Bloods now, I mean, I think I sent this out earlier. It's like, is UCLA, is Indiana, are they still Blue Bloods? UCLA won all their titles between 60 and 70, and they've won only one since.
Well, Pope, I think this is your whole point earlier about is blue blood now have to be redefined by, obviously championships means the most, but how do you define a blue blood? Because part of it dealt with dynasty and players for staying 3-4 years. Now it's just adding up championships. If you're a really good team, your players are going to be there at Duke or North Carolina for 1 year, maybe 2 years.
I have a serious question. Do you think anyone cares whether a team is considered a blue blood?
Well, the teams do for recruiting purposes.
Sure.
Yeah.
TV cares. Media cares.
Pope does for sure.
I'm guessing that had it been a North Carolina UCLA final of two blue bloods, I'm guessing the ratings would have been a lot higher than UConn San Diego State. So I think the TV cares in that way as to whether it's a blue blood in the finals.
Have we seen the ratings yet from last night?
No, I have not.
It would be interesting to compare them to Kansas Carolina, because that was two huge blue bloods. And then the final four games, how do they compare to the Nova, Kansas, Carolina, Duke games last year?
By the way, if you're going to define blue bloods by number of championships, does Kansas even belong in the conversation?
Well, do they have 2 or 3 in the last 25 years?
Like 4.
I think they have 4 total. And, a couple of them were a while ago.
Well,
80s.
the funny thing is, like,
they won with Larry
Manning.
Brown. Yep, they won.
Danny Manning.
They won. They've won twice with Bill Self, so they've had 3. You know,
we
so
were
it's
complimenting Tom Izzo earlier in this tournament. I'm not sure people ever really put Michigan State in the blue blood category, but they were in 25 consecutive NCAA tournaments and like 16 Sweet 16s. I mean, and yet nobody really counts them as a blue blood.
It's a winner's world, baby.
well, and UConn sitting on top of it.
Hey, you guys want to move on to the Masters?
Of course.
Pope, Milk's not here. You know, we're going to be talking about it after the fact for sure. But let's get into some predictions. Who do you think is going to take it this year?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the tournament real quick, and then we'll go there. This first time in a long time that we've had the Renegades from the Live Tour come back and compete against the PGA Tour, and it's certainly going to lead for some interesting conversation and comparison during the week. I mean, because you could argue the Live guys are not nearly as tournament ready as the PGA guys, Tour guys, and so will Koepka, who won last week with Live, is he going to be able to compete? Will we see him in the final 2 or 3 pairings on the weekend? Where's DJ and all of this? Does Cam Smith, who hasn't, competed as much since the Open Championship, is he going to be able to come back to form? It's going to be really interesting. Scotty Scheffler's obviously playing world-class elite golf. He missed a 4-foot putt against Sam Burns in the match play. Otherwise, he probably would have, won 3 out of 4 tournaments or something like that, like he did last year. Rory seeking his career slam. For whatever reason, he seems to have issues closing the deal at Augusta. Tiger hadn't played since Riviera 7 weeks ago. I don't think Tiger's a serious candidate, to win, but he'll be a fascinating story to watch. He's going to be able to make the cut. I think that'll be the big story Friday afternoon. Sam Burns, who won the match play, is playing really well. He's a great young golfer to watch, as is Cam Young. And don't forget about John Rahm. So that all being said,
Hope, what about
yeah.
what about the American boys Spieth and JT?
Well, JT and Spieth aren't playing as well right now as you would hope going into the Masters. Now Spieth's always a threat to win Augusta because he's won before and he knows how to win there. But JT, I'm not seeing it. I don't have JT in my final 3 or 4 pairings on Sunday. I put I have Spieth as my sleeper, I guess, if that's possible, because he hasn't won in a while, and he's always, like I said, he's always a threat at Augusta to put it together. It's going to be interesting, guys. I don't know if y'all have followed the weather forecast like your pod weather guy, but it looks
You
like
okay?
it's going to be nasty. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be
Rainy, right?
rainy and cold. And of course, the guy who's my former favorite golfer, now dead to me, Phil, said that it's going to play really long. So that will make it a more interesting tournament for all. But when it's all said and done, I'm going to go and I'm going to ride the horse that is playing the best golf right now, and he just has the temperament and the skill set that he could win another 3 or 4 green jackets. I'm going to say Scotty is going to do it again.
What about you, House? Who do you have winning, and who's your sleeper?
Well, I think we're going to get some serious drama on Sunday. We're going to have a repeat of a final of last year, but this time we're going to have a live golfer steal the show, and I do think Cam Smith is going to pull this thing off. I am going with Cam Smith. I think Pope makes a great point that these guys might be playing on different courses with different level players that they're playing against. This guy is a superstar, should have pulled it off last year. I think Cam Smith is going to put this thing on his shoulders and win it. My sleeper is Sahith Theegala.
Yeah.
This guy has been playing great lately, and I just think that there's always some guy that sneaks into the top 10 and you're like, who is that and where did he come from? I think for people who follow golf, they won't really be saying it about this guy, but for most people, get used to the name this weekend, Sahith Sigala.
Who's he
And-
paired with, House? I was looking at the pairings and I noted that pairing.
I'll tell you in a second while Rooster's giving his Roosterdamus picks here.
Well, I'm going to give you Milk's picks first because he texted them to us. He's got Scheffler winning, and for his sleeper, he's got Max Homa.
Ooh, I like
That's a-
Max.
And
That's a
I'll
good
tell
one.
you, that's Max is who I'm rooting for as my sleeper. But since Milk picked him, I'm going to say that the two guys I think who are hot, who could be sleepers right now, are Jason Day and Cam Young. And I agree with Pope. I think Scotty is the first back-to-back Masters winner since Tiger Slam in 2001 and 02. I just think he's playing like a machine these days. Nothing's getting into his head.
So Sigala is playing with Patrick Reed and Adam
Yes.
Svensson.
Yes.
Oh,
Patrick
God.
Reed and Adam
Oh.
Svensson from Canada. So I think we're all going to be rooting for Sigala.
I want to see Rory square off with Patrick Reed. I think that's why he's been pumping iron for the last year or so.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to see a Rory Reed pairing on Sunday, wouldn't we?
Rory would kick his ass.
Or like a Scotty and Cupcake, little Brooksy. You know, those would be some dream pairings.
Hey, House, you say you have a lasso. You ready to give it?
It's a combo lasso combined with a backside punch.
All right.
And it's interesting that you brought this thing up about Sonogo, because as you pointed out, right now we're in the period of Ramadan, which includes fasting from sunrise to sunset, which for any high-level athlete, even after the day has ended, it just takes a toll on your body. And my lasso is for the Premier League, which is filled with a bunch of players who honor Ramadan. And what they've done is for any game that is still being played, where the game starts before sunset and then continues, they're giving the players a chance to take a break in the middle of the game and eat and drink. And I think that's really great.
Yep.
That at that level, particularly with everything that's going on in soccer around the world, and a lot of hate and racism and ugliness, that the Premier League gets it. Like, imagine something like the NFL, where you're not even allowed to kneel or anything like that. Imagine the NFL doing something. I just think it's a classy move and recognizes the international makeup of its players. Unfortunately, on the other side of that is the French Football Federation, FFF, which regulates the Ligue 1, the top league in France, who are refusing that, which is why it's my backside punch. The French league said that football does not take into account the political, religious, ideological considerations of its actors. What a bunch of horse shit. Like, how about just humanity? How
Right.
about humanity? It's like not that big of a deal.
Huh. I had not heard that. That I agree with you. Hey, Pope, did you have a punch? Is there a punchable face?
No. Well, I mean, can we? I guess it's
He's got to be delicate here.
Don't
very
punch a woman.
delicate.
Please don't punch a woman.
Yeah.
He's about to.
Jesus.
Can we have the refs in the game puncher?
Bison,
Yeah.
Bison,
Well,
this is, you need to cut this segment. Go ahead.
I'd like to punch the refs.
Right.
I thought that game was horribly refereed against both squads. It wasn't just against Iowa, but that technical against Caitlin Clark was a joke, and that totally changed the pace of that game because she had to play different with 4 fouls, just totally unwarranted. You can't call that at that time. So I'm gonna ruminate about what I will call this, but Kim Mulkey just drove me nuts on Sunday. I don't know whether it's the bedazzled tiger gear look that she had going with the high heels, or the way that she would stand on the floor and stomp and gyrate and jump around on the floor, not on the sideline while the team has the ball in the offense, whatever side of the floor that she's standing on. And it got to the one point where she was trying to flag the ref or gyrate or something, and the ref tried to like push her back, and she held on to the ref.
She was wearing giant heels. She had to, or she would have
Yes.
fallen over.
Well, probably so. I mean, but you know, look, it's not about Kim Mulkey, it's about her players. And I guess at the end of the day, her players love her, and she's a great coach. Just, you know, maybe just don't do quite the show that you put on. And I realize the first time that 10 million people have watched a women's NCAA game, and you wanted to put a show on. Well, you did. You made your point. So not a punch, but you know, just be better.
You know, LSU women are pulling in probably 14,000 a game for their home games. This is they're used to the big crowds. They draw more than Milk's Tampa Bay Rays.
Well, you got to give it to the LSU administration for going out and get Kim Mulkey, because you know, she's a stud coach for Baylor, and she played at Louisiana Tech, won a couple titles there. So you know, getting her to come back to Louisiana and establish LSU as a powerhouse, it really does add to the sense that women's basketball is headed in the right direction.
I'm not sure I'd want to hang out with her, but you can't take anything away from her achievements as a player and coach.
As a player and coach, you can't. There's a lot of controversy that follows her. There were a lot of news stories. Eventually, Brittany Griner revealed that she was not allowed to come out while she was a player at Baylor.
Yeah.
There was a don't ask, don't tell policy because Mulkey didn't want to affect recruiting. And Mulkey is not well liked in the LGBTQ community. She straddles the fence. She says she needs to do that for the kind of the surroundings where she is in the South. And look, like you said, you can't deny her success as a coach, but she's not without controversy, that's for sure. And the way she conducted herself, like Pope said in that game, was just like the refs needed to rein that in. Let's punch the refs. Although
her wardrobe person.
Yes, for sure. I'm sure it was a guy.
We
wouldn't punch any women.
All right, fellas. Anything else?
Hey, come back, fans. Next week, we'll have Bison and Milk back, and we are going to get to our MLB preview, and there's a very good chance the Phillies will have won a game by then.
But not tonight. Just not tonight.
Clearwater Phillies or the Major League Baseball Phillies?
It's the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs.
We'll have a lot to talk about, because first week of baseball has been fascinating, breaking it down, and what a product they're putting on the field.
It really has. It really has been. I think these rules have been a success so far.
It's a good teaser for next week. See y'all next week on 110.
It's a new game.
Anybody see that bomb Giancarlo Stanton hit?
All right, it's time to go.
All right,
come on, guys.
Cut that.
See ya.